time for another episode of The Oil Stream with Dustin Nielsen and Tom Gazzola, presented by Popeye's Louisiana Kitchen.
Hello, everyone, and happy Family Day Monday. Nielsen and Gazzola with you. The Oil Stream brought to you by Popeye's Louisiana Kitchen. Over a dozen locations in Edmonton area, recently in Windermere. One's coming out in St. Albert's, and you can go pick up that brand new Oilers meal that they've got going for a little while still. You get that puck that comes with, I think it's like $14.99 or something like that, and you get your hands on a sandwich, the delicious nugs, the drinks, all the sides, and the puck that they rotate to 3 or 4 guys. And look, nothing says Family Day like Popeye's Louisiana Kitchen. Tommy, what's up, buddy?
Well said, man. Well said.
Nothing like spending Family Day with our Oil Stream family, right?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's great to be doing a special Family Day edition of the program. And, I wonder if in Helsinki, Finland, there's going to be a Timo Hartikainen Popeye special edition puck or an Eero Pakarinen or something like that, because they're partying pretty hard in old Helsinki, and for good reason. Congrats to the Finns on their Olympic gold medal.
Yeah, Finland, I mean, I know they have this great hockey rivalry with Sweden, but from the Finns that I know, they hate Russia. Like that, yes. Like I cannot imagine. Like that's probably best case scenario for them to win an Olympic gold against the Russians. That party will go on. I mean, and the few Finns that I do know as well party hard.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's going to be a good time, man.
I've been to Finland. I've been to Finland. I was sent there for the 2012 World Championships. And when you say they party hard, like not just the young people, everybody parties hard. Yeah. I remember it was late in the tournament and we had a night off, and my camera person and I met up with like Chris Johnston and met up with like Uffe Bodin and stuff. And we went hard that night at some like heavy metal bar, and we left there, I think at like 5 a.m. And we're walking through downtown Helsinki, and I'm looking at like people passed out on benches. I saw like a couple in their 60s just making out. It was unbelievable. I'm like, this city, man, like they know how to go, and this country for that matter. And it's kind of neat because it's like the southernmost tip of Finland, and people just train in for the weekend. So a city of like, it's like the size of Edmonton. It's like 1.3 or 4 million. And on weekends, it's like 3 million. And
people just come from everywhere.
They just get greasy. And you kind of look at it, you're like, you know what? I respect the hell out of that.
Yeah, no, especially for a big thing like this. It'll be pedaled down to the metal here for a week in Finland celebrating that. Tommy, a few things to get to. We'll get to Kim Morrison Remax question of the day. We'll have another episode on Wednesday, another episode on Friday. Obviously, we missed a couple of episodes earlier in the month, so we thought we'd bang out a few, especially with the schedule that they've got. They just wrapped up 5 and 7. Maybe we shouldn't be surprised that the 5 and the 7 ended up being a loss against a pretty darn good Minnesota Wild team. Kevin Fiala looked like a slightly older Kirill Kaprizov yesterday. I mean, the guy was absolutely buzzing. Probably with the way things have gone since Woodcroft took over, Tommy, was last night's post-game a little bit different than some of the other losses that you guys have had to cover?
Yes, much more subdued. I don't know if it's the long weekend. People were just like, game over, terrible game. Let's focus on enjoying another evening off. Or if people were just content with the 5-game winning streak and content because there's a new coach. We knew the vitriol that was there for Dave Tippett. And maybe an indicator of that was a text that we got in on the pregame show, Dusty, where someone wrote in and they said, guys, I'm a little bit concerned because on some, I don't know if it was message boards or if it was like a discussion on Twitter, but it was among Oiler fans on social media where they were going into the game against Minnesota, and the theme was that if they lose, it was going to be an acceptable win considering the schedule. I thought that was odd. And I brought it up with Matt Cassian, and Cass is like, that's a loser mentality. I thought so too. And then we see the Oilers lay an absolute egg last night. So maybe that's kind of where the fan base's mindset was like, good team. And the Oilers were due for one. And they just kind of went with that motif.
A couple of things I want to discuss coming out of the loss. I don't know if you'll hit on any of them, so I'll throw it to you first. I mean, what was the biggest takeaway for you coming out of that loss to the Wild with the way it went down?
That the Oilers are still capable of playing the same way they did under Dave Tippett. and not everything is completely fixed. Boy, there was, and it started early, flashes of the Oilers of 2-3 weeks ago, of a month ago, where just these awful defensive zone breakdowns, sloppy passes into feet or errant passes, and then even through the neutral zone, things weren't great. And in the offensive zone, I don't know how many bad pinches ended up being odd man rushes the other way and just poorly played. And then the cherry on top is the lack of saves early in the game. I mean, what a sterling save percentage Mike Smith wound up with. 3 saves on 7 shots. I think he was like, 430 or something like that.
Just brutal.
Oh, it's pathetic. So, yeah, it to me, I'm like, whew. No, that element of their game still lingers within. And that's what really stood out to me. How about you, Dusty?
I mean, Mike Smith for me. If you look, I think of the 4 goals he allowed, 3 of them, he was like on his goal line or just slightly above it. Like I know I'm harping on this all the time, and I know it's just the way he plays, and it's probably the way he's always played. But I mean, he's just so deep in his net. How much more room is there to shoot that puck when he's that deep in his net? I mean, the 4th one, he was still about a foot inside the paint, but at least he wasn't ass inside his net. Like, so for me, and the weird thing with Mike Smith is, and it was like this last year too, with the way he plays, with how far back he plays, and he's obviously pretty active in the net, it always makes me look nervous. Like, it always makes me look nervous. I always expect him to allow more goals than he allows because he's always deep in his net. And last night they just got him. I mean, now there were some pretty grade A scoring chances. I get it. But at the same time, I mean, he was way back in his net for a lot of those opportunities. There was a few guys they had in front of him. I mean, the one goal that really stood out to me was they drop it back to Bouchard. The one thing he does best is shoot the puck. And he doesn't shoot. He hesitates, and he loses, and it comes back the other way. Darnell Nurse slides on his belly, gets toe dragged, and Mike Smith's back in his net. Like, Fiala's looking at 2 feet to his left, 2 feet to his right. It was a massive breakdown in so many different ways. But, yeah, I did not like, I know people say, a lot of those are great A's. I don't care. I mean, you're getting the start. You're in a big spot there. I mean, Koskinen's outplayed Smith in the last 72 hours. We can say that. So I don't know what they do to start the road trip. But yeah, I did not like Mike Smith's game at all, whether it was really good scoring chances or not. I just didn't like the way he looked in net. So that'd be one thing that stood out for me, buddy.
Totally understandable. I said this on the post game. I think I even mentioned it on the pregame. I feel like Ken Holland's probably looking at the goaltending on a day-to-day basis.
Got to be nervous about it, right?
You have to be. And, when they play well and give you a decent enough night to give you a chance to win, I think you're kind of breathing a sigh of relief. But any night, one of those 2, and then maybe even 3, if you lump Stuart Skinner in there, who's been guilty of allowing early goals in games when he's played in the National Hockey League this year, you're going, geez, that's tough sledding. So I feel like, the goaltending thing is still priority number 1. If you can find anything, the list of goalies out there, potentially it's not sexy. And I know Ville Husso's name came up yesterday. He's been playing really well, but do you want to take a chance on a guy who's emerging and hasn't really done it consistently? And what's
he's a UFA at the end of the year, isn't he? Is he a UFA?
I can't remember. I want
to double check because I thought somebody was saying that with how well he's played, like St. Louis is an interesting spot because they've got Binnington and Binnington signed. Yeah, Husso will be a UFA at the end of this season, and he's having a nice contract year, if you want to dub it as a contract year for a guy who's still kind of establishing himself a little bit. So.
Dusty, would St. Louis even want to part ways with him? Like, I understand it, they don't want to lose an asset for nothing, but if you
want those 2 goalies heading down the stretch, 100%. Yeah,
right.
You're right. A lot of the goaltenders that you actually think might be able to help probably aren't even available anyway. So, and the other ones that are available are only available for a reason. And that reason, Tommy, is they're not very good. So
it's sad and it's the truth. And then, a name that's been thrown out there, and I've seen it a few times, is Halak. He has a no trade clause. I think people forget that.
Yeah, he doesn't want to be dealt, doesn't he? Like,
yeah, exactly. Like, and I don't know how much of an upgrade he would be. What a predicament. And I still laugh at the Frank Saravalli, Kelly McCrimmon back and forth. Clearly there's some beef there, but Frank wouldn't have put it out there about Marc-Andre Fleury if it wasn't legit or if he got it from a really good source.
That was something.
Still funny.
All right, it's Nielsen and Gazzola with you. I got a couple Twitter windows open, and one of them actually had Popeye's Twitter account right at the top, Popeyes CA. It says, this is kind of what I always say, what better way to spend family day than with everyone's favorite chicken nuggets, available in 8, 12, and 24-piece combos. Everybody can get the size. It fits just right. Isn't that great, Tommy?
Yeah. They're so good.
They are good. I mean, if you've not had these nuggets, we aren't messing with you. They're insane. I hopped on Twitter quickly because we're talking about Mike Smith. I wanted to grab that Brian Swain tweet. Swain does a nice job keeping track of the goalies. Mike Smith, in 6 of his last 9 starts, had given up 2 goals on the first 6 shots or fewer that he has faced. And I know you label him as a battler, but you don't need to battle as much if you can stop the first shots that you face, Tommy. It's 6 of his last 9. 2 of the first 6 shots have gone in. Unacceptable. Just unacceptable.
Yeah.
Like, that's why we're sitting here going, Ken Holland must be like, man, I like the way Woodcroft has this group playing, but I got to get these guys a goalie. I mean, maybe it's Skinner, but they just don't seem, right now at least, ready to be like, you know what? Sorry, Mikko. Sorry, Mike. We're going to run with Skinner for a bit. I would be surprised if that happened at all, to be honest with you.
That's why I feel like it's probably a day-to-day thing. Just, you're like, you don't know what kind of goalie you're going to get night to night. It doesn't matter which of the two. You're like, well, this guy could be great or he could be dog shit. And nothing sums up Mike Smith's recent run like Swainer's tweet. And on top of that, like, I think back, yesterday, 4 goals on 7 shots is just awful. And then that game against Chicago, the first 2 are in and game's over, and you're like, geez.
Can't have it. You need better goaltending early in hockey games. It's just that simple. The other guy I wanted to talk about briefly was Bouchard. Got caught on a couple of those goals last night. Not that anybody really played well on that team, but where are you at on Bouchard's game right now? Because obviously he's an interesting study. They want him to be a huge piece, and he probably will be a huge piece of the future. Still a very young, inexperienced defenseman. And I know, Tommy, you've mentioned on the Oil Stream a number of times, and probably on 1260 as well, a number of times, that with a young defenseman, you're going to have ups and downs, and he's in a down right now, isn't he?
Very much so. Nothing sums it up like that one goal where I think it was the one where Darnell Nurse spread out and got toe dragged, and then Bouchard was on the back check. And I'm watching him, and he goes and he slams his stick in the corner. And it wasn't even like a good slam of the stick that made it worth it. It was like a little... I'm like, I looked at Daniel Nugent-Bowman, and I'm like, that sums it up right there. Like, he couldn't even make
so
the stick slam worth it. Yeah. It was like this like little kid just like... And so with him in his play and the peaks and valleys, and him going through a rut, like, I think I still have patience. I'm not annoyed or frustrated, but you do note it and you go, okay, like, clearly if he doesn't learn from these mistakes, that's where there's going to be a problem. And let's see how he bounces back, because at some point in the near future, he's going to have good games again. And when he has those good games, is he eliminating those errors that are leading to glorious opportunities and goals against? Or is he's picking it up and he's taking the lessons from those mistakes? So I'm not mad, or I'm not with some fans that are like, send him down, he's got to sit. No. Like, he's going to make these mistakes. It's part of the growing pains. And yes, they're costly and they come at bad times, but this is why you stuck with him. And the reward will probably still be there after he goes through these tough stretches, because generally they make you a better player. And we'll see how he adapts. But nothing says, poor performance like a weak stick slam into the corner.
I do love that guy. He's so laid back.
Yeah.
All right.
Break the stick.
Yeah, that's right. All right, let's get to Ken Morrison Remax question of the day. KenRMorrison.com. I'm actually I'm breaking cards now. I've started a card group on Facebook. Ken was in my break last night. He had 2 teams, so he's in there dabbling in card collecting now too, Tommy. It's kind of funny, actually. But KenRMorrison.com, if you're buying, if you're selling, he's your guy. 780-993-4815. I almost want to sell my house just so I can work with this guy. That's how nice he is. Tommy, what do you got today?
All right, for the Ken Morrison Remax Excellence question of the day, Dusty, we're not going to look too far ahead because I know we have the episode on Wednesday. So taking a look back at last night, I know a lot of people are kind of saying, hey, one of those games was due for this team after how well they played, 5-7, all that. I get it. And I kind of felt the same way last night. But then thinking back at some of the mistakes that were made and the goals that were scored and the goaltending like we talked about, is that loss last night more ominous than it seems? What do you think?
I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no for a couple of reasons. I should have known this last night when I was betting. I should have been heavy on Minnesota. I mean, back-to-backs, end of 5-7. We should have, maybe not the way it went down. It was goal. I mean, it was a mess. But we probably should have expected a loss. The other thing, and there's 2 other aspects to this that I find kind of interesting. One, they get a couple of days before they have to play again. So it's not like, oh man, travel, boom, no practice, nothing. They have some time here. Just not a huge window, but they've got a couple of days, right? So what's the plan, Tommy? Like schedule-wise for them? Are they...
So off today, they're flying to Florida today into Tampa.
So a practice
and then
tomorrow.
They'll have a full practice tomorrow, okay. Full game day on Wednesday, and then they get the 2 days between games again before going back-to-back Florida, Carolina.
So I think the fact that they had that loss and now they've only got 1 game in their next 5 days, at least 2 practices, I would think in there, depending on how it goes, possibly 3, but at least 2 practices this week. I think that helps them kind of get back on track. And obviously, some huge games coming up that we'll talk about on Wednesday's episode. The other aspect of this that really intrigues me the most is how does Jay Woodcroft react lineup-wise after a loss? Like after a loss, Tippett would always mix something up. Does Jay Woodcroft come back on Wednesday with the same first line, the same second line, and the same third line? And Tommy, I kind of think he will, but I think that's a huge, huge thing that we should be watching for Wednesday.
Fair point. You know what? One of the good silver linings from last night, and maybe it's a bit of a difference than what happened during the Dave Tippett portion of this year, was that they still kind of battled to the end. Did you notice that? Like they were still working hard and still trying to push for offense.
I didn't think they mailed it in. I just thought they played poorly.
Yes, they did. Now, when it comes to the question of the night, or the day, I think that it's not like gloom and doom ominous, but I think that there's still some elements there where they haven't exercised the demons. And I think we're going to see a few more of these types of games where they play like they did earlier in the year when things were bad, when they were in the 6-game losing streak, 7-game winless stretch. I think those types of performances are going to pop up a few times and kind of strike a little bit of doubt into the fan base, because I don't think this loss was a one-off. Yes, it lined up for all the reasons you mentioned to be one where it wasn't going to go well. But I think that, those old habits might die a little harder than we think. They haven't been exercised, those demons, just yet. So I don't think it's necessarily like very, very gloom and doom ominous, but I think that there's some bits of it that will sprinkle itself throughout the season into the Oilers game and performances and ultimately results.
All right, for anybody who's asking road trip questions, AB Poker Inc., I saw your question. We're going to save the road trip discussion for Wednesday's episode. Obviously, be a game day episode, but 5-game road trip coming up. It is a big one, and we will discuss that as we work our way through the week. We'll have another episode Wednesday, another episode Friday. We're still going to kind of jam in another bonus episode somewhere here before the end of the month as well. Tommy, big plans for the rest of your family day or what?
Yeah. So spent family day last night and this morning playing video games with my brother who lives in Vancouver.
Very family-ish.
4. Yeah, so I mean, we don't get to see each other only like 2 or 3 times a year, and we took advantage. Had a few wobbly pops, and we'll have Chinese food takeout tonight at my
Nice.
mom and dad's, and my other brother will be there. Eva G likes to cook, and she has her dishes and specialties that are fantastic. For a Polish lady, she makes great Italian food, I'll tell you what. And Reno, the old Goomba there, likes to grill. So we're giving them the night off, and we're just going to get some Chinese takeout. It's going to be great. What about you?
I'm going to probably spend most of the afternoon dressed up as a princess because it's Elizabeth's 5th birthday today. So we are, she got like 4 different princess dresses and all these crowns and the jewelry. So I'm going to be in high heels for the rest of the day, Tommy. What can I say?
It takes a real man to do something like that. And aren't you just the cutest little princess today? Well, actually, number 2 behind Elizabeth. So happy birthday to Lizzie.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, she turns 5 today. So, all right, we will be back on Wednesday with another episode. Thanks for popping in for a quick family day chat. Tommy, enjoy that Chinese food, buddy, and we'll catch up on Wednesday, man.
All right, stay comfortable in that princess dress today, Dusty.
See you later, buddy.